Just a quick word to say the Scotland Rugby podcast is now available every Tuesday. Join me, Andy Burke and Tom English for everything you need to know about the world of Scottish rugby. Just head to BBC Sounds and subscribe to the Scotland Rugby podcast.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Football Podcast with me, Alistair Lamont. Just a reminder, you can subscribe by visiting BBC Sounds and signing up. Well, it's the start of the latest international window as Scotland prepare to take on Georgia and Norway in their final European Championship qualifiers. Steve Clarke's side go into these matches with the unprecedented luxury of already having qualified, but still with a slim chance of topping the group. We'll begin to look ahead to those matches in the company of the former Scotland striker Kenny Miller, and we'll also hear from inside the Scotland camp. But before that, we'll just reflect briefly on Sunday's Premiership action, as both Celtic and Rangers recorded comfortable victories, leaving Aberdeen and Livingston languishing. Kenny, we'll start, if you don't mind, with Celtic's annihilation of Aberdeen. It was pretty much the perfect response to their own thumping by Atletico, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Again, they would have expected a response after a result like that on the Wednesday night against Atletico, but I don't think many would have expected that type of result. You know, they could have been dominant and played their football without kind of getting that level of goal, but obviously it was a bit of a capitulation from Aberdeen at the end of the game, conceding those 3 goals in injury time, and that'll be something that Barry Robson won't be happy about. I'm sure this morning there would have been a few, or even after the game, there might have been a few stern words to his team about how they actually did kind of just, not chuck it, but that capitulation, when you're 3-0 down, it's already a kind of tough result, but to then concede those 3 goals late like that, it does put that little bit of embarrassment on the scoreline. So knowing Barry well, he won't be happy with that. But again, take nothing away from Celtic. They thoroughly deserved a convincing victory. They played well, they're firing, and it was, like you say, the perfect response after a poor result by their standards on the Wednesday night.
Yeah, it leaves Aberdeen just a couple of points off the bottom, albeit only 7 off third with a game in hand on St Mirren. But have you seen enough from them to suggest they'll be up around those European spots before long?
Listen, I would say at this moment in time, no. But this is the team that finished third last year. You know, and for long spells of last season, they were probably floating about a similar position until Barry actually took over, and obviously had that fantastic 7-game winning run last year, which really propelled them right back into the race for third spot. So at the moment in time, they're not firing. You know, it's as simple as that. It could be the European venture that's taken out of them for the domestic scene, a bit similar to maybe what it did with Hearts last year, again at the early stages. But even at that stage, Hearts were still there and competing. It's like you say though, that it's so tight again, the league, and it's taken a real familiar feel, and it has done the last couple of years, that from kind of fourth downwards there is a lot of competition right down to Aberdeen, right down to even St Johnstone now, who have kind of pulled themselves back into the mix. It's going to be super tight for these top 6 places. But for teams like Aberdeen, Hearts and Hibs, they need to be challenging for that third, fourth in the European slot. So at this moment in time, Aberdeen are just not firing. It'll be interesting to see what their domestic form will be like when the European run ends. And obviously they've got a cup final to look forward to as well. So that's an opportunity to put some real positivity on it.
As for the earlier game, Rangers made it 6 wins from 7 under Philippe Clement. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said a few weeks back you hadn't seen a lot of difference initially between Clement's Rangers and Michael Beale's. Is that an opinion that's changing now?
I would say there's... It was a few weeks, and I think I would probably have been referring to the Hibs game, which, as much as the one comfortably, that it was quite a similar performance. If you then go into Prague, it was it was a hard-fought point, but not a great performance. But it's turned out to be a really valuable point. And then Hearts at home again. You know, like it took right to the end, and there's a lot of positives that you can spin on that as well in terms of resilience and never say die and going absolute to the end. But I'm looking at more the performance as a whole and how they actually played on the day. Again, there wasn't too much to shout about. Since then, I would say there's been a definite uplift in the energy. I think you can see the way that he's trying to really get after the ball. at the top end of the pitch. I mean, you think of the first goal against Prague on Thursday night when Danilo's pressing the centre-back, albeit it's a horrendous mistake, but you still need to get there, and you need to get there aggressively and quick to try and put that defender under pressure and make him kind of rush into these types of mistakes. So Danilo done that very well. So I would say I'm seeing gradual improvements, yes. I think there's through winning games and through building the momentum as they have done domestically and on the European scene now, their players have to take belief and get confidence within that, and that then should transfer to better level of performance. I do also attribute it down to players coming back for the injury. Danilo coming back now, scoring goals, assisting goals. You see Tom Lawrence is back on the field to play. Cantwell's now over his latest injury and back in the fold as well. So it's for me, there's players coming back. I've definitely attributed to it, and I think the winning games and the manager now getting his hands on them for a number of weeks and demanding maybe different things, certain slight differences in how they want to attack and also how they want to go against the ball. You probably are seeing a little bit of difference now.
And what about Livy? They defy the doubters every year, but do you fear for them maybe a little bit more this season?
Well, you know, they're bottom of the league for a reason now. That's 5 straight defeats now after yesterday. So that's never a good run of form for any team. And if you go on that run when you're a team like Livingston, you're probably going to find yourself down the bottom, which is where they sit at the moment. I'll look at their team, and I do think they've got enough in there that they should be able to get themselves out of it. I mean, I think they've got good players within that team. I mean, listening to the game yesterday, I think there was a comment about getting back to what Livingston were good at. You know, and I know every manager wants to progress and try and move the team forward, but when you've got a good formula that works, like Livingston have, and like he says, they have been punching above their weight and looking to survive for the last 5 or 6 years now, and they have done, and they've done it pretty comfortably at times as well. But at this moment in time, when they're not scoring enough goals, they're conceding too many. So it's not a good mix, that. So I still think they've got enough within the building that they could pull away from it. But again, you know, the same could be said for St Johnstone and Ross County and the teams that are down the bottom of the league. So it will be a battle, you know, but it's up to them. That's one thing they've been very, very good at over the years, is battling and getting themselves firstly up to the league and then obviously staying in it for a number of years.
Yeah, well, we'll pick up on all of those issues again in a couple of weeks. But now the national team takes centre stage with a visit to Tbilisi on Thursday before the final game at home to Norway on Sunday. The squad has travelled to Turkey for a few days training before the game in Georgia. And from there, Steve Clarke's assistant, John Carver, has been talking to the media.
I think the most important thing is we need to finish off what we started. You know, we had a great start to this campaign within the first 5 games, and then obviously losing in Spain. But we want to finish it off in the same manner, and we want to win both games. Obviously, it'll help us going forward in the season for future tournaments. So I think it's important that the guys realise, yeah, we've done a good job so far, but we need to finish it off.
Kenny, there have been a number of occasions we've gone into the final 2 group games with nothing riding on them, but this is the first time we can say that from a positive perspective. However, how important is it to finish the group with good results?
I think it's very important. You know, like, the job is done in terms of qualification. There is still that slim hope if they can go on an absolute scoring spree and outscore Spain in the last couple of games, or Spain actually have to drop points for Scotland to finish top. But I think the campaign is obviously, it's been a success, what we've qualified, but the one thing you don't want is to take your foot off the gas. There's built so much. I mean, a lot's been talked about the belief and the momentum that they've built up over the course of this campaign right for the off. That you don't want to kind of just go out with a whimper now and falter in the last couple of games and maybe draw one and maybe lose one, or even a couple of draws definitely halts that momentum. So I think they've just got to approach it the way they will approach it. There's no doubt about it. They'll be looking at it as an opportunity to go and win games, finish the group off strong. Like I said, you've got that slim hope of Spain slipping up, and you could maybe top the group, which would be absolutely outstanding achievement for the group. But I think there's been obviously a long time between now and next summer. You know, a lot can happen in terms of personnel forms, injuries. I mean, touch wood, you don't have any injury concerns going into the finals. But it's there's a lot can happen, so you need to try and maintain this momentum. And I think they're 2 good fixtures, 2 games that we could win. You know, they're absolutely they're teams that we've beat already. Albeit one at home, but the Norway result away it wasn't a great performance, but that was a never say die, kind of stay in the game right to the death. And when we got that goal, the whole momentum just shifted, and we obviously went and got the winning goal. So there are games that we can win. So it's just important that the players, and I'm sure Steve Clarke won't allow them to go complacent, and as much as the job is done, it won't allow them just to take their foot off the gas. They'll want to kind of go over the finishing line sprinting, not with a whimper.
It is 3 defeats in a row against some of the top teams in the world, it has to be said, England, Spain and France. But will those games have been good for the players nonetheless?
I think they'll have been good for the... I mean, I'm going to say a wake-up call, but it's no wake-up call because you know how good these teams are. I mean, England was a real lesson. You know, they're an incredible team. Obviously, you've got the Spain game. There was that wee bit of revenge on it for Spain as well. And then France are just, again, they're another one of the superpowers in the world in terms of the squad they've got and the personnel they've got within it. So it's... see, the thing about any defeat, it can just give you these wee questions, you know, and these wee doubts. And it has halted that incredible run that they were on under Steve Clarke. So it's I think they were good games. These are the types of teams you're going to come up against next summer. You know, it's the best of the best that are going to be in it. So you're going to come up at least against 1, maybe even 2, maybe even 3 in your group, depending on how the draw goes. That you could have 3 really, really tough teams in it. So you're going to have to find a way to compete, and you're going to have to find a way to get results if you want to get out of this group next summer. So there have been good games in that sense in terms of the test, but in terms of holding that kind of momentum and maybe just giving you a few doubts that maybe we're not quite there yet in terms of competing with those types of teams as much as we did beat Spain at home. I'd really think these games it's important that we do bounce back and get back to winning ways.
We are missing some very important players for these games. Angus Gunn, Andy Robertson, Kieran Tierney and Aaron Hickey certainly among them. It's a real test of the depth of Steve Clarke's squad, isn't it?
It is, but we have also talked about that depth over the course of this campaign, where you look throughout these fullback areas now. It's quite rare that you'll be missing. I mean, I'm going to say 3 of your best fullbacks, as much as Kieran Tierney plays left side centre back. To miss 3 of the players, Hickey, Robertson and Tierney at the same time is, I mean, it would be a disaster come next summer. At least at this moment in time, it's not. What it does is it does kind of shine the light on how strong is the squad. You know, are the lads that are going to have to fill in? Are they going to be capable just in case they are going to be needed? Because I'm sure at some point they will be next summer. But it's opportunity. I think you've got to look at it that way. Whoever's going to be coming in and getting these chances to play, it's an opportunity to play for your country. Again, you need to get back to winning ways after the 3 defeats. Like you say, it's important that the team does get back to winning ways. So it's going to be an opportunity for someone. However, it's not great for us in terms of trying to rebuild that momentum to do it without 4 of your starting players. But again, it is what it is. You've just got to try and find a way of getting the right lads in the team like Steve has, and we've had real continuity and stability in that selection and that shape over the last couple of years now. So I'm sure he'll just find people to step into their shoes and perform accordingly.
Yeah, well, on that note, in the absence of those players, Gunn, first of all, who do you see coming in? It's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is. I think, I mean, gone are the days when you're looking at it's Marshall, it's McGregor, it's Craig Gordon, 3 goalkeepers who at any point or at different points over their careers were the number 1 for Scotland. At this moment in time, it looks like it will be a straight fight between Zander Clark and Liam Kelly. I think when Liam Kelly started the game against France, that maybe gave me a little indication that maybe he's ahead of Zander. Again, who knows? There might have just been the plan all along, to do it. But when Liam started the game, I thought that maybe put him ahead. I think there has even been chat over the course of these 2 games, he may be getting a game each. For me, again, that's no really answer. I think it's important that you find out Steve decides who the best guy is and puts him in and gives them that opportunity. So that'll be an interesting kind of selection headache for him, who does go on. I think both goalkeepers have performed pretty well for a number of seasons now in the Premier League, so it might be a toss of the coin. But for me, I think Liam maybe just edged it based on the fact that he started that France game.
And also starting that game were Nathan Patterson and Greg Taylor in those wing back roles. Do you imagine those are the 2 he'll go with again?
I think so. I'm less concerned about the Nathan Patterson one because he made that role his own prior to his injury. So, and he was a really, really strong performer on that right flank. I think it really, really suited him. Again, like every position that the players do, I said Steve just found the right fit, the right way of playing, and he's got the right personnel that fit. There's no square pegs and round holes, and that role really, really suits Nathan. So that's it. I would expect him to get the nod on that side. And Greg Taylor now for 3 seasons, he's been an outstanding performer for Celtic. He's just really, really unfortunate that he's found himself behind 2 world-class left-backs.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of the beast where Scotland is at the moment. But any time he comes in, he doesn't let anybody down. And he personally must be fully confident after winning leagues and winning cups and playing. By the way, despite so many people saying that's an area of the Celtic team that needs to be strengthened, he still just goes out there and performs. So he does show a real kind of mental strength. The fact that he's able to fight, hold off any competition, and keep his shirt on his back at Celtic. So anytime he comes in, I think he's not going to let anybody down.
Otherwise, it'll be very much the tried and tested starting player. Steve Clarke's not a man who changes for the sake of changing, is he?
No, not at all. I mean, I think within the midfield of the team, you've got so many good options that even if he did make a wee change here or there, it wouldn't be one that would be a surprise. Because when you're talking about the McGregors and the McGinns and the Ryan Jacks and the Billy Gilmores and the Scott McTominays and Ryan Christie's and Stuart Armstrongs and Kenny McLean's, you could be picking any 4 of them. I mean, that's about 8.
That's without mentioning Lewis Ferguson as well.
Lewis Ferguson, who's absolutely flying as well across in Italy. Yeah. So there's so many options. He could pick any 4 of them, and he could play them, and they're all performing. They're playing at really, really good levels as well. But listen, I would imagine that it will be the kind of tried and tested ones that will probably get the nod. But it does what this does present us with is a real opportunity to maybe get these Lewis Fergusons more international experience, because this is the thing with this group. They've came through as a group together, and they've all gained this experience of firstly qualifying for the Euros a few years ago now, but then coming up through this incredible campaign, just missing out in the playoff to Ukraine in the World Cup. They've just gained all this experience. Now we've got a really, really good international team with a lot of caps under their belt as well. But what's important is you're still nurturing this next lot that are going to have to come through. So I think Lewis fits into that. And I think the job that he's doing, all you can do is perform for your team. And he's doing that very, very well at the moment. So I would be very surprising if he didn't get some game time over the couple of games.
Yeah. Just to finish up then, Tbilisi is probably a place that strikes fear into the hearts of most Scotland fans. Having been part of the Alec McLeish side that lost out there in 2007, is there anything in particular that makes it a tough place to go?
I think any away game, whether it be a European game for your club or now an international game away from home, is tough. I mean, you look at every international break comes along, you look at some results. There's always a shock in there. There's a draw or there's a defeat for sometimes really, really big teams, international teams, when they're going away to these kind of so-called smaller venues. So international football's tough. The travelling, again, you're talking about guys now. When you look at Callum McGregor, for instance, these guys, even Billy Gilmore now at Brighton, because they're in European competition, you're looking at 55, 60 game seasons as well, and they're just asked to churn these games out week in, week out, 2 games a week, 3 games a week, and still be expecting to hit these heights. Then you factor in the travelling and time differences and heat and all this kind of stuff that comes into it. Might not be that big an issue at this time of year, but there's a lot you need to factor into it. Plus, these are good teams. You're not going across and playing a bad team. You're playing them in their own backyard, and it's never easy to travel away from home and go and put on really convincing victories. And it's something that, again, this team has actually done really, really well. They've managed the games really well, even games that they've not particularly played well. And again, I'll go back to that Norway game. I think we approached that game maybe in a slightly wrong mentality in terms of trying not to lose, because we knew how valuable a point would have been, and it really showed in the performance. And we allowed the Norway team, who in my opinion are not as good as us, we allowed them to dominate the game, and we sat in and we kind of never really got our foot on the ball the way we have done. With the players we've got players that can control football games, and it took that to that last 5 minutes, that crazy last 5 minutes where we got the goal, the whole thing shifted, and we went up the field and got another goal with Norway throwing bodies forward to try and go for the win. And it was a really, really incredible result, but we found a way to stay in the game that night. And I think this team now, game management, the experiences that they've had in terms of going to difficult venues and coming away with good results, that'll stand up in good stead going to Tbilisi.
Well, as always, we'll have the action covered here on BBC Scotland. There'll be live coverage on radio and online. It's a 5 p.m. UK kickoff on Thursday, but stay tuned across all our platforms for the build-up to, and then there are highlights of the Georgia game on the BBC Scotland TV channel that night at 10 o'clock. More from the Scotland camp in our next podcast, but for now, my thanks to Kenny Miller and to you for listening.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Radio Scotland.